We are about to take you on a journey through time, beginning with the savage Celts, the civil yet brutal Romans, the Normans, and all the way up to a test of one man's endurance, beliefs, and determination, the Siege of Colchester. So, what were the key events in the history of Colchester? We asked local historian Adam Whiteman.
The significance of Colchester before the Romans invaded was the large, heavily defended Iron Age settlement that was centred on in two places. One part on what is now Sheepen on the edge of the town where the Colchester Institute is, and the other at Gosbecks. These were two centres of Iron Age activity. Sheepen was more industrial, Gosbecks was more where settlement-like, and the whole thing was defended by a large system of dikes, defensive dikes, and this setup was unlike anywhere else in the UK. And from this settlement, the king, Canobalin, ruled a large portion of East Anglia, and he was seen by the Romans to be the most powerful and significant of the tribal leaders of England. Most of what we know about the town before the Romans is through archaeology, which there has been a lot of archaeology done in Sheepen around the Colchester Institute. Lots of on what the area now known as hilly fields. There was lots of excavations there, and Gosbecks as well. There been lots of large excavations there, and if you go there now, you can see how things were laid out. Romans invaded in AD 43. Would have come from the continent over the channel, and they marched straight to the Iron Age settlement of Colchester, where they defeated Canobalin and set up the Roman legionary fortress, which they set is in where the modern day town is. It was centred on the modern day town. The main road of the Roman fortress was the high street of the modern town. This is why the settlement pattern moved from Gosbecks and Sheepen to the town where it is today. The Romans brought to Colchester roads, solid masonry buildings made of brick, made of stone. They brought heating, they brought water. They basically built an entire town here, unlike anything that the Iron Age occupants of England would have ever encountered before. Before the Romans came, they were already seeing Roman pots and items of Roman, sort of life tableware, things like that, coming to Britain, but they wouldn't have seen anything like the town that the Romans set up here. They also would have brought a tight administration that would have administered the farmland and taken money and so on and so forth, which is ultimately what caused Boudicca to rise up. Roman Colchester was rebuilt after the Boudiccan destruction by the townsfolk who were left behind, the ones probably who weren't killed, and their families. These were like settled legionaries, the former soldiers of the Roman army who had settled in Colchester to defend it. They would have been charged with rebuilding Colchester, and including rebuilding and building some defences as well. I think the town wall was probably built quite soon after that occurred. And the Romans stayed in Colchester for another 300 odd years. They obviously the Roman civilization peaked, and then as it slowly started to decline, they became less concerned with their outlying areas such as the UK and as England, and the Colchester would have been open to raids from Anglo-Saxons and people from the continent, other tribes who would have come in to raid the town and the area surrounding it. And basically, when it was no longer tenable for the Roman Empire to run and maintain such far away provinces as England, the Romans withdrew and left the town with anyone who would have wanted to stay. The folk who came over weren't town dwellers. They weren't as well organised in many respects, and so the town would basically slowly went into ruin, and only small parts of the town were still being used through the Saxon period. A lot of the buildings were left to go down into the soil. Yeah, and that would have been basically the pattern was from Roman sort of departing to the town sort of starting up again, really, after the Norman conquest. The castle is built on top of the foundation of the Temple of Claudius. Most of the castle fabric, most of the building material that the castle is made from, would have come from buildings which were once part of the Roman town. There isn't a natural stone source in Essex, really, or nearby. The nearest sort of decent stone outcrops are the limestones of Kent, the ragstones. So building stone is a highly prized commodity. The castle was a centre of power in Colchester. It was built by an extremely wealthy Norman baron called Eudo d'Apifa, who commissioned the construction of a lot of the large medieval buildings around the town, and it would have been the centre point of medieval Colchester after the Norman invasion. It was the largest stone keep, the largest Norman stone keep in Europe. It would have been a very grand structure. It probably stood higher than it is today, and is in a very prominent place right on the top of the ridge of the town, and would have dominated medieval life in Colchester and the surrounding area. The siege of Colchester took place because a very prominent royalist came from the town. His family home was located where St John's Abbey is, and so after his royalist army had taken a defeat at a battle, he returned to Colchester, his home, family home, whereupon he set up in the town, much against the will of the townsfolk, who were generally on the side of the parliamentarians. And then when the parliamentarian army came, they didn't have the strength to break out of the town, so they stayed there, and the parliamentarians besieged them.
After the siege of Colchester, was Sir Charles Lucas and Sir George Lisle executed publicly?
Yes, they were indeed. They were taken just behind the castle. There's a monument that stands there now, and they were publicly executed there.